This is actually a really lovely example of a Corgi Junior's Mk3 Escort. I've never really come across one quite as nice as this. Not, I don't mean in terms of its condition, because it's obviously had, well, I would say its first owner really looked after it, and then it got passed on to somebody who was a bit more careless with it, because everything about it is almost like new. The glass, the wheels, the interior, it's got a bit scratched and chipped up at the front, and there's some quite bad scratches on the roof. So I'm going to do something with it, but because it's such a nice example, I'm going to be very gentle with it, and I'm going to restore this in 3 stages, each of which you could leave it there if you wanted, or you can take it on to the next stage. Now I managed to get this open because the rivets on Corgi Junior's cars are quite intimidating when it comes to drilling. They're usually kind of convex. Now, the base plates are very easy to break, and I would have hated to have broken the base plate on this one and had to start super gluing it back together and stuff, because it's apart from the scratches, it's such a nice, well preserved example. So I managed to do the trick that I did before, where I just squeeze the rivet with the tip of some long nose pliers and basically crush it. And then eventually, if you just rock the wheels gently from side to side, you can just nicely slide off the plastic base, and the rivets are actually still there. It's just that kind of mushroom edge of them that holds the base plate on, that's just gone, because we've basically just crushed it and kind of chipped it off, crushed it off with the long nose pliers, and then chipped it off using precision screwdrivers, or pretty much any instrument that's got a little bit of an edge to it. You've just got to be patient and careful, and using patience and care, I'd say I managed to get those rivets so that I could slide that base plate off in about 5 minutes. So the glass, I'm literally just going over that with a cotton wool pad, and it looks like new. It needs nothing from me. So far we've managed to get the thing in bits, no drill even required. The glass is fine, the interior is fine. So the base plate itself is in really good condition. The wheels are almost like new. So we're only really going to be doing anything at all with the body, because the body is the only bit of this thing that needs anything doing to it. It's only once you get it in the light like that you can really see the scratches. Now notice with this as well, another bonus for anybody who's not really got much equipment, or wants to try this out without too much equipment. I didn't even put it in the stripper, didn't even put it in the jar to strip the paint. I could have done, but then that'd have been waiting a day or waiting a good few hours to loosen the paint off or whatever. I noticed that when I just gave it a quick rub with 600 grit sanding cloth, it got it down to the finish that I actually want. This is kind of what I had planned. So if you look now, that's literally taken all that time that you've just seen there, maybe 10-20 seconds, to get the roof looking like that. What I'm trying to do initially, this is like the first stage of this project, and like I say, when we get to the end of this first stage, it's already at a point where you could just display it like that, because it would look fine on any shelf or mantelpiece. So obviously the roof was the easiest bit. The front end, the back end, and the sides, they're going to be a little bit more difficult, because they've got a lot more detail and sort of convoluted surfaces on there. So it's not just straightforward 600 grit. We're using the metal toothbrush, we're using wire wool, medium grade. That's all that's needed. Anything harsher than that would be too harsh. So you can see here we're just using the metal toothbrush on the sides. That's the best way to get all the paint off the sides. But the wire wool comes into force as well, because there's quite a bit of paint that's going to be a little bit more difficult to get to in between, like the windows and things like that, in between the bumpers and lights and whatever. But after a couple of minutes, this is where we're at already. So the roof is actually, that's got to where I want it to be, because what I'm aiming for, the kind of finish I'm aiming for on the whole body on this for the time being, it's not quite the chrome effect that we've been getting on all the other ones that we've been mirror polishing. We're trying to go for, I'm just putting a bit of light put a bit of light on the subject, just so you can see what's going on there, and see where we're getting to with because it's important to have good light when you're doing this, because you want to know that you've got all the paint out of there and that you've not left anything in those sort of hard to reach areas. So yeah, there is quite a lot of to and fro in between this is 600 grit sanding cloth that I'm using here, because 600 grit, that's the limit that we're going to at the moment, because as I was saying, I don't want to take it down to that sort of chrome effect. I'm trying to get it more to like the kind of stainless steel effect that you get on like a machined steel, like an engine part, or on the back of a watch, or the metal of like a watch bracelet, rather than that sort of chromy stainless steel that you get on like a cutlery set. It's mainly just to demonstrate that there are different finishes available using this sort of sanding method. You don't have to always take it right to the end. Like if you look at that now, it does kind of look more like a diamond cut alloy wheel rather than a chrome bumper. I suppose that's the best way to that's the best analogy to use in terms of cars anyway. I just thought, because the Mk3 Escort, it's a classic sort of boxy 80s shape, and I just thought that it'd lend itself quite well to such a finish. So yeah, I think getting the roof to that kind of finish took about 20 seconds, if that. The rest of it is not all quite as the same kind of fun and games, but as you can see, it's getting there. And it's just a matter of, like I said, you never ever go any finer than your 600 grit. So you can use the 600 grit as much as you want. If you get your nail behind it, and you can get it in, get round the bumpers and things like that, and into where the rubbing strips are, and the scuttle panelling between the windscreen and the bonnet, and in the bars of the grille, and all that kind of thing. And then every now and then you might just need to get something a little bit heavier, like the wire wool that we've got here, just to get a little bit out. And then you just go back to your 600 grit afterwards. As long as you're finishing with the 600 grit, then that's fine, and you've got that uniform all over, then that's absolutely fine. Also, remember there's a grain to this as well. When you are trying to get this finish using 600 grit, don't do it in swirls. Don't sort of do it in like a little circular motion. Do it all one way. Otherwise, you tend to find you'll get, like I said, there will be a bit of a grain, and there'll be bits of it that look like it's going against the grain. But obviously, when you're doing little fine areas like this with the wire wool, you don't worry about that, because you're doing it all again with the 600 grit. So as you can see, there is a lot of toing and froing between the different things. I mean, I've got like a steel awl here just to ferret out those last little bits of paint from around the arches and things like that, because you don't want to rely too much on the sanding, because you don't want to be sanding details off the casting. That's the thing. So swap about between the various implements, make sure you get all the paint off there, and then at the end finish off with the 600 grit, all going in the same direction. So like I say, so it goes with the grain, so to speak. And at that point, if you want, you can call it done. Who would not want this? A brushed steel Mk3 Escort. Why would anybody not want that on the shelf? But the good thing is, because you've put all the work in with the 600 grit, the world's your oyster now. If you don't want to leave it as this brushed sort of metal effect, then literally 30 seconds with the 2000 grit pad will give you this, which is closer to the full-on kind of chrome effect like I usually do when I do the mirror polishing. In fact, really, it is there. So I would say at this point 20, maybe if we're being generous, let's say 25 minutes. We haven't had to use a drill, we haven't had to use any stripping material. All we've used is abrasives, and we've gone from a car that had survived very well and was still in very good condition, but just wasn't quite really nice enough to want to proudly display. And we've taken it from that, in 25 minutes, we've taken it from that to this. So there's now another point at which you could call it done. If you're happy enough with it like this, leave it like this. I'm almost happy enough to leave it like this myself. If I don't leave it, well, I won't be leaving this one like this. I am going to take this one further, and I'll be doing that in part 2. But as I said before, because it was such a nice example to start with, I won't be doing anything with the glass or the interior or the wheels or anything like that. In the next part, we're just going to be putting some colour on it. And that's why I'm leaving the interior as it is, because the interior will go well with the colour that I've got in mind. What I would say, if you're going to leave it like this, black interiors do tend to go better with the sort of bare metal chrome look. So if you're not going any further than this, you might want to think about painting the interior black, whether by aerosol or you could just brush paint it if you're careful. Anyway, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you on the next part.